The American Freedom Radio Network proudly presents, live from Phoenix, Arizona, The Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here every Friday from 7 to 9 Central for topics you won't hear on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, Morgellons disease, and much more. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. If you would like to speak to the host, the call-in number is 218-339-8525. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We're live from Phoenix, Arizona. It's the Truth Tonight Talk Radio, and I am your host, Roxy Lopez. Hey, before we even get started, I want to be sure to thank Danny Romero at American Freedom Radio for asking me to host my show here. I am thrilled. It's an absolute honor. Love the time slot, too. It's a different time slot for us. I want to also thank a friend of mine, Sean David Morton. He's the one that turned me on. We actually had an interview about a week ago, and Danny heard the interview, and here we are. So rock on, people. Listen, today's topic is... it's pretty heavy. For those of you who don't know about Morgellons disease, we're going to talk about this today. And one of my guests today is Dr. Will Spencer. He's working with some patients with Morgellons. You won't find an MD in this country, in the USA anyway, or the European countries. I don't know any doctor that will work with somebody who has Morgellons. Basically, the CDC put out a report about a month ago, saying it really doesn't exist, and they've been pretty much doing that for 20 years. So we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about this. This is what our shows are all about, people. They're putting some awareness out. A lot of subject matters that the general public is unaware that certain behaviors in the medical field are occurring. And I just have to commend Dr. Will Spencer for actually taking the bull by the horn, so to speak, and researching this disease along with GMOs, which we're going to talk about as well today. The two other guests we're going to bring on a little bit later are Melani Vritschan from Brussels. Her story is just amazing. She will discuss what it means to have Morgellons and what has happened to her life. If you guys want to go to the Facebook page, for those of you who are older listeners, you know the Facebook page is Roxy Lopez on Facebook. We just posted some photos of both of these gals. Marie Palac is also going to be our guest, and she also is a sufferer. She's from Sweden, so we're going to bring them both on. But first, let's introduce Dr. Will Spencer. Let's get talking about what you do. Welcome to the show, Dr. Spencer. Glad you could make it.
Good evening, Roxy. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about your studies with Morgellons. Like, when did you start with that? When did you first come across Morgellons? What led you to Morgellons? I know that you also have some other discoveries and some other work that you've been doing with bees and colony collapse disorders and so forth, and GMOs as well. So start wherever you want. Back us up a little bit and give us a little bit of information about you.
A few years ago, about 3 years ago, I guess now, I was seeing this word Morgellons. And actually I had my own theories, I guess you would call it. So I got a hold of Mr. Carnicom and wanted to share some things because if you type in some of these catchwords, his name is like right up there at the top, or at least the Carnicom Institute. So I got a hold of Cliff and attempted to express some theories of mine and some research directions. And that's what led me down this road. And after Cliff was basically unwilling to look at some other directions, I left there, and now I'm with the Morgellonsresearchgroup.com, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And we've been helping. I can't even give you a number right now of people that with the Morgellons and Morgellons associated symptoms, and actually getting some extremely positive results.
Excellent. And for those who don't know who Clifford Carnicom is, he was one of the first, and if correct me if I'm wrong, he was probably the first person to go out publicly about chemtrails and study chemtrails and what they were spraying like 12 years ago, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was one of the first. Him and Clay Douglas with the FreeAmerican.com. They were some of the first ones that I come across. Actually, Clay was the first back in about 2001, I believe, that I contacted, but Clifford was the second. So I mean, it's been out there a while. It's just been getting popular the last few years because more people are starting to exhibit the symptoms. Right.
And what are the symptoms, and what, from your view, from your studies, what exactly is Morgellons disease?
My view of Morgellons is basically the result of industrialization. The list of symptoms is extremely long. It's almost similar to like a fungal overload, pathogenic overload, and there's so many related symptoms. The key, some of the more prominent ones being the body actually growing these fibrils or hairs, the body producing artifacts of some kind, whether they're some people, I've even met a couple of people that are producing plant-like material growing out of their skin. There's actually these non-earthling type of insects being come out of their body. I mean, unbelievable stories that I would never have believed it unless I was standing in their house witnessing this. Hexagons. I mean, on our website, Morgellonsresearchgroup.com, there's probably 1,000 pictures that you can see. They're real. It's unbelievable. It's like the science fiction channel come to life.
Absolutely, I agree with you. You know, as well, if people want to see some of you have photos there and everything, and our website does as well, thetruthtoday.com. If they look under GMOs or Morgellons disease tabs, they can see some of the studies that we've been doing for a couple of years with Caroline Carter out in Cyprus. But back to what you're saying, I think what first blew my mind when the subject matter was introduced to me via one of our webmasters, you're right, you just used a term, science fiction. I thought, this can't even be real. It blew my mind. You know, I started with, research on synthetic fibers. You just explained it a little further, but, synthetic fibers, meaning something that can't and should not be growing in the human body and then colonizing in the human body. And some of the, and of course we'll have Melanie and Marie on in about 20 minutes to sort of expose like what they're actually going through physically and mentally. But there are many components to this. Now, why do you think, Will, why do you think that this is such a big cover-up? I mean, the Morgellons was reported 20-some-odd years ago. According to Dr. Caroline Carter, she says it shouldn't even be called Morgellons disease. It should be called GMOD, which would stand for Genetically Modified Organism Disease. What do you have to say about that?
I am totally aligned with that.
You are. Well,
absolutely.
The theory makes sense, you see. But what is the cover-up? Well, why is there such... I mean, to interject for a moment, she is testing via hair samples. She's testing in the country of Cyprus 8 out of 10 people, and doesn't matter the age group, by the way, little children all the way up to the elderly. 8 out of 10 are testing positive for Morgellons disease. What's going on?
What's going on? That's a good question, because actually there's a lot of patented data that I have found, and people like to share when they find or declassified information that used to be classified. I have a report from 2004 that talked about the nano and micro technologies of unmanned, basically smart dust, which are smaller than microscopical particles that some of the components of that smart dust are showing up in people's body, coming out through these little black specks and showing up in some of the fibers. And so you tell me what's going on. I think it's madness, but the body is responding by trying to push the stuff out through the skin or whatever, and it's affecting our genetic expression. It's affecting people's health, and it's horrifying, especially when you have this.
Yeah, well, and absolutely, from what I've found from interviewing different people who actually have Morgellons disease, there's a psychological component to it as well. Can we talk about that a little bit? But we'll let Marie and Melanie explain more of that from a first person later on the show. But can you just give us a little heads up on what the psychological component to having Morgellons disease is?
Well, picture things coming out of your body and put yourself into a spot to even comprehend that for one, are not natural, for two, hurt, have lots of pain, and for three is when you go to a medical practitioner in allopathic medicine, the only thing that they have for you is to label you delusional, when in fact, you're producing these things. So you want to talk about traumatic emotional experience when you're telling somebody that's supposed to be a caregiver or a provider, which is really I don't even want to go down the negative side of that, but they're supposed to do a job. You expect them to do a job, and they're telling you that you're delusional and this ain't real.
Right. Right. Okay, and thank you for saying that, because isn't it interesting that that's all the medical field is referring to it as, is something, that the patient is delusional. And that's, you use the word maddening. I think that is over the top. Now listen, I spoke with a doctor, an MD. I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a friend. And he told me that he started looking into Morgellons about 15 years ago because of some of the patients that were coming in with dermatitis, I believe. And he believed back then that something was going on. And but he nearly was suspended for even trying to run a few lab tests. So with that in mind, what are we looking at here as far as why even medical doctors who take a Hippocratic oath, to heal, and this isn't just happening in our country. This is happening all over the world. Europe, Canada, United States. You're having the same exact reaction. In other words, you're told that you cannot even examine the patient. You can't put anything under a microscope. Now, what would be why? Why? I mean, are you allowed to examine patients? Will, are you for fear of losing your license?
Well, first of all, I don't call them patients. I call them clients or partners. In the natural health world, we're not bound by licensure like the allopathic medical model. Mm-hmm. Allopathic medicine has licensures that are government sponsored. Basically, you are you are governed by those you are licensed with, and they may say they have the Hippocratic oath, but in reality, they get to a point, and this is so classical, that they change their tune is when they get so far into researching what you have going on. And there are so many medical doctors that are leaving the profession because they give an oath to do no harm. But when there comes down to it, they're not unable to actually help. And there always becomes a decision to make. Am I going to stay because of the paycheck and the security of that licensed job, if you will, or not? And I think it's all a cover-up. I think The medical field is covering up for the governmental field, which is covering up for the agricultural field, which is, everybody's in bed with everybody else because the technology is overlapping from the agricultural to the Environmental Protection Agency, the FDA, and the medical field, the AMA. They're all linked together, and when you start getting truth to a point, then they clamp down on those that hold licenses in those fields.
Meanwhile, they're leaving patients or sufferers hostage because there's nowhere for these Morgellons patients to go. They can't get any help anywhere. And then, like with the stories that are going to come up, which are absolutely shocking with Melani and Marie. Once you are diagnosed as a quote-unquote crazy person, let's just call it, then there are the many effects. Your life gets destroyed from that point. So we have Morgellons patients, or Morgellons sufferers, let's call them, who write me quite a bit in the last 2 years, and they're afraid to go to an MD. They're afraid to even step into a doctor's office to even suggest that this might be what they have. And this is obnoxious. It's horrible. We'll talk about a little bit more later in the show about solutions to that, which I think that you're very involved in those solutions. But I think you're right too. I think you have government and private corporations who are in bed with one another. I think you hit the nail on the head, and this seems to be across the board with everything going on today. But then again, we have people like you, Dr. Spencer, who are going to step up and help and aid these individuals. Now, briefly, what are you doing right now that is working with your patients, or your clients, I should say? Sorry about that.
Well, for one, there's always an associated fungal load or pathogenic load of some kind, and that seems to be across the board. Another thing that across the board, there's a mineral deficiency and amino acid deficiency across the board. And, there's a break.
That's cool. Hold that thought, and we'll be right back with Dr. Will Spencer and Morgellons disease. Help us out. Marie, are you still there?
I am here.
Great. Okay. So, sounds like they cleared it up. Thank you. So, Marie, can you express to the audience your story, what has happened to you, your dealings with the medical field, etc.?
Yes, I will try. I'm first glad that you invite me here, and it's very important for us who is sick because I have been sick for over 7-8 years, and I didn't know that I have Morgellons. I think I heard it just for 2-3 years ago. So when I began to be sick, so it was like I think everybody else that was most infection, and you get tired, a lot of headache, and I began to thinking, my body is not the same. But I have a company in that time, so I still work and keep going on, and I was stressed and pressed because of the company. But suddenly I get worse and worse, I get more allergy, migraine attacks. I'm sorry for my English, but I'm from Sweden.
Yes, and you're doing just fine, Marie. You're doing absolutely fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then I began to go to the doctors, and I have a little problem with my neck. So they said, it is from your neck, and you have whiplash and different kind of disease. So I think, but that was a different kind of feeling in the body. But after a while, I became more allergic, and I thought maybe there's something in my saloon. And after that, the sore begins, and my hair suddenly begins to be electric. So it was like it's flying, and then I have like you see in my first picture. So it was like I have a spider web over my face, and everybody thinks, oh, she begins to be stressed and crazy. And I said, oh no, there is something going on in my body. And I have worked, because my company was in the industry of cosmetic and skin. So I thought the first time I met the dermatologic clinic in the hospital, that they believed what I said, because I said, oh no, I have sore. And that was very deep sore who will not leak, what's the name in English? Who will not going over. So it was very deep, and the sore behaving strange, and because of my work, I begin to research what's happened to me. But after a while, so I thought they believe what I said when I said, oh no, there is something, it's feelings like I'm swallowing hair, and I was so honest, and I didn't hear, because I was so stressed in the same time, that I think the most of the people who has this, what we call it, nightmare, they think it sounds crazy, everything, when you begin to talking about fiber, oily effect, and your apartment is affected, and my salon was affected, my company was affected, and but in that time I think, oh, they must believe that I speak the truth. And there was many visiting to the doctors and hospital. And 2008, I was in 1 month in a hospital. But then they said, oh no, you pull off your hair and you make you sore because you're so stressed, you don't know what you do. And for me, that was unbelievable, because I have worked 25 years with skin, and I was take care of my outside very well. So I think, what did they tell me? But after a while, I get so sick, and I couldn't explain in the right way, because then the folks come in, and I have my remember. I couldn't, if somebody asked me what is 1 + 1, I couldn't say 2, because then I was totally off. So
Now, Marie, when you were going through this the first few years, and like you said, and this is very common, your story is very common with Morgellons patients, that you have the lesions. I think that was the word you were looking for, the lesions on the skin, and sort of, right, okay, and just sort of popping up here and there, and you did express before to me that it hurts when this is happening, and then on top of it, you become very tired, you become very depressed. Now, when you went to the doctor told you that, just to be clear with the audience, the doctor told you that you were making all of this happen. You were making the sores on your skin. Is this correct?
Yes. And it's so funny, because, not funny, it's so
ironic.
It makes me very angry, because they said that, and now, 4.5 years later, I put out the files from the hospital and really read what they have written about my disease. And now I have found out they said I have the delusionals, and there was some psychological sickness, like when you are have delusion that you look at yourself, and then nobody else see it, but you see everything happens to you. But that is so unbelievable, because everybody saw. First I begin to, my hair fall off, and then I begin to change in my face. I get swollen. I didn't recognize me after the whole of this have going out in the body, because it's look that I was another person. When I look at in the mirror, I couldn't recognize me. And then they will tell me I have a psychological sickness. Then I was, have some illusional about I change. So, but now I have let all the psychiatrists to do the research of me, and now it's written that I have no delusional, I have no personality disturbing, and my only problem with my psychologic way now is that what happened to me, because in all this year I have forced to move with my kids 4 times in that condition. I lose so much. It's about a lot of money and a lot of things, because I couldn't do. It was, I just sit down and look, everything goes away from me. And I couldn't even say, stop, oh, please help me, because after a while everybody thought I was crazy. But now they begin to understand. Everybody begin to understand now. But then that will give a little psychological problem, because you must handle that you have loose, that you live like a homeless person almost. And before,
I think what you're trying to say here is that, with the idea that it costs money, you were running a company, your health was going downhill, like somebody maybe who has cancer or this or that, is same kind of thing, right? And so you're losing things. But I'm glad to hear, because you've come forward, you're getting more and more public about your situation, Marie. More and more people are also getting to know you, and people who have Morgellons, who's going to come on next is Melani, and you remember Melani. We did a show with Melani Vritschan as well, and this way, and then you've got Will Spencer also in the mix, and quite a few others. So now because you went public, which is kind of a freaky thing, and I understand it, Marie, because this isn't something that we want to tell the world when we have a disease like this that doesn't exist in the medical field. So I completely applaud you. You are a courageous woman, Marie, and you deserve to be helped and to find a cure for you, etc. So I just want to say thank you, and I know how nerve-wracking it can be to come onto a show like this where you're speaking to the world. And listen, I've studied the disease. I'm not a doctor, but I've studied the disease enough to know what you're going through. And I think that it's public awareness. And so you become the spokesperson for others to help others, Marie. So I want to tell you thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and I study now. I'm so not healthy because my body is very weak. But now I study by myself, so I have found out a lot of things, how these fibers works, and it's unbelievable what I understand. It's more logic, and that's because I want to speak, because I know there is something. I can pull out these things every day, and now I have learned how to do it, because it's very important for the Morgellons in the beginning to not do that wrong, because if you see something, maybe you want to take it away, and then you can hurt yourself. So I will try. My goal is to find out with like Will and everybody how we can have a cure for this, how we can help people, what they should do in the beginning, because I have had I have all this answer and fact and information that I have today, 2-3 years has I don't have to need to have that horrible years that I never can explain how I felt. And I think there is even people today, because they don't know they have Morgellons. That's my goal, and with you I hope I can help other people.
We will also continue to work with you, Marie. You've been a light in a dark room. So, yes, of course. And, briefly, Dr. Spencer's on the line with us as well. Will, what are some of the things, because I know that you've been also speaking with Marie, what are some of the things that are working for Marie right now?
Well, I just started speaking with Marie, so I really can't talk to that because we've just been communicating. It's just a new relationship here. So I haven't been in progress that far with Marie.
Okay, Marie, what are some of the things you are doing that is working, I guess I should say, and maybe so Will, you haven't yet given her anything to try out yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, Marie, when we come back from the break, we'll talk about some of the things that might be working for you, and we'll also bring on Marie Palac from Sweden. From Brussels, and we'll be right back. So hang in there with us, folks. All right, we're back with Dr. Will Spencer and a couple of our other guests, Marie Palac from Sweden and Melani Vritschan from Brussels. Glad to have you back as well. We haven't introduced the listeners to Melani yet, so why don't we go ahead and do that real briefly, and then we'll get back to the question that we had for Marie. So welcome to the show, Melani.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roxy, for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. Melani, we were just discussing with Marie what it's like to have Morgellons, some of the what she'd gone through, losing her business, not being able to really get help, and then we were just going to start off with some of the things that are helping Marie, because I guess she had taken and tried different remedies in the beginning many years ago and just sort of failed in a lot of areas, and she wanted to warn the public as well that don't do all the things that she did because they didn't work and they made it worse. But before we answer that question with Marie, Melani, why don't you tell us what's going on with you, because I'm so sad to hear the very recent story from you a few days ago where you have your son taken away, and a lot of the public is absolutely outraged for this. Melani, why don't you share what's going on with you, please?
Yes, I live in Brussels. I've lived here for 20 years, and 4 years ago I got infected with Morgellons, which means that I saw the first symptoms, these strange material fibers and coming out of my skin, and nobody could really tell me what it was or could help me. So I saw so many doctors. And, it's a long story, but basically the father of my child started a custody battle over this, telling everybody I had gone crazy because I was thinking that there was some material coming out of my body or that there was something in my body. And, it's been very, very rough ride. But basically, as you say, Roxy, the last developments are indeed that there was a psychological expertise ordered by court, and that although this psychologist wrote very positively regarding the relationship I have with my son, that I'm a good mother, so that I have a very good relationship with my son. But she finishes off saying that, but unfortunately this mother is delusional because she thinks that there are things in her body that her body is kind of invaded by some nanotechnology or something anyway that is not natural. And so that means she's delusional and her child should be taken away from her because these delusions are dangerous for her son. And that's what happened. So it's been really dramatic consequences on my life.
Absolutely. I've been following your story, Melanie, and like you said, you had quite a few positive letters written on your behalf regarding your condition, regarding your frame of mind, and yet they still decided to lean towards taking away your child, who you absolutely adore. I have a picture of you and your child on Facebook. He is absolutely beautiful. You look so happy together. And I'm so sorry, and again, absolutely appalled at the audacity and the stupidity of anyone who would take a child away from their mother. I've spoken to you many, many times on video, on Skype, on radio shows, and you've never exhibited any sign of delusional or crazy or unfit mother, and you even have letters to support that you're not an unfit mother, and I apologize, and we want to help. There's a lot of organizations. Why don't you mention some of the people who are trying to help you?
Yes, well, I mean, actually, to begin with, it's actually the Morgellons Research Group, Dr. Will Spencer, that is here tonight, who has been a great support. He was also one of the people that actually wrote letters to the court confirming that this condition exists, that he's helping people that suffer from Morgellons, and that it is indeed partly a nanotechnology that auto-assembles and auto-replicates in the body, because that's what my ex-husband had told everybody, that I apparently thought that it was something linked to a technology and that it was completely crazy. And also this psychologist picked up on that, said how crazy this was. So I want to thank Will, that is here, for his support, and also his colleague Catherine Augustine, who's the Morgellons Research Group secretary, who also wrote a supporting letter. Marie, who's here too, had written 2 testimonies saying that she suffered from Morgellons herself. And there were many, many testimonies also, because there's another organization I'm part of, I'm working with, that is ISAACT, this is the International Center for the Against Abuse of Covered Technology, isaact.org. Where I'm in contact with the president, Jesse Beltran, and many, many other members and victims, and also the attorney, the lawyer working with this organization. I want to thank him as well. Dr. Henning Witte wrote a letter saying, well, I can confirm that I defend victims of a technology, of nanotechnology, which is what Morgellons is, or at least partly. And this is nothing to do with a delusion. This is not some kind of delusional illness, but this is very real, and I can confirm that I defend victims of this technology. Well, all this, so I had quite a lot of support, I must say. That was really great. And still, it was ruled that I was delusional and a danger to myself, basically.
That's very interesting, and I can understand to one degree one thing. If they allowed you to have Morgellons, in other words, if they openly admitted that you have this disease, both of you, Marie and Melanie, then what would happen is the cat would be out of the bag now, because Morgellons, doesn't exist apparently. So, in other words, you become the victims of many different layers of this, don't you? You become a victim for your health because you can't get any health benefits from it. In other words, you can't get any practitioners to aid you, to help you along, or to cure you, or diagnose you, or what have you, A. And B, then you start losing your livelihood. C, like Marie lost her business from the illness because she wasn't getting any better and has to self-diagnose. And then Melanie, for you, as the progression moves forward, now you lose your son, your child, your small child. So it has many layers, and then on top of it, you can't even get the courts, apparently, from what you and Marie have said, Melanie, you can't even get the courts to help you either, because they don't even know what it's all about. And if they help you, then they sort of open the can of worms. So again, I'm so sorry for you, but both you, Melanie, and Marie, one message that you have, and it's very, very clear to me. The public needs to know what happened to you. The public needs to be in contact with you, and this becomes awareness for many, many sufferers. Now, you mentioned one of the gentlemen who's also helping you, Bertrand, Danny, is that his name?
Jesse Bertram.
Jesse Bertram, that's right. Thank you. Jesse Bertram, he has, how many people has he contacted throughout the world?
Oh, I think he's in contact with thousands and thousands of individuals. So,
right. I think it was 10,000 or something like that when the last time I spoke to him. So with Morgellons disease. So hello. Thank God for their group. I'm going to have him come on the show at some point too. Not today, unless he calls in. And by the way, speaking of callers, the second hour we will be taking your calls at 218-339-8525. That's 218-339-8525. We will take your calls. And Melanie and Marie, I have one question for you because I want to know, can you stay for the second hour of the show, or is it just too late where you live right now?
No, I'll stay with great pleasure, so no problem for me.
And how about you, Marie?
Okay for me. I'm like, it's today for me now, so...
It's already it's already morning. Okay, now Marie, we'd asked you a question, and we might have time to answer it. What are some of the things remedies that you are using today for your body? What are some of the remedies that you're using today for your body that seem to be working for you?
Today I have tried a lot, and. But now I take MSM. I don't know because there is some who calls it's a difference between MSM and MSM. There is a two, but this is from Sweden. And then I take silver water. That have I found out if I don't have it, I can see a difference, because sometimes I have not afford to buy it, and then I have immediately see I get worse, especially then with the oily effect. And when I have no money at all, then I try with apple cider vinegar and baking soda, so I can peeling off, this oily effect, and especially in my skull. In my head, and that helps a lot. And with that's something I have found out, who is very, very strange, and I cannot understand why, but with castor oil, when I put castor oil mixed with baking soda and the vinegar, there is something to happen, because the black fiber going together and it's very easy to take them away, that hair who should not be there. And I don't know what's happened, because I have tried with coconut oil and...
It's all right. Thank you, Marie. Yeah. It's all right. So these are some very good ideas. We're going to take a short break here, and we'll be back with Dr. Will Spencer, Melanie, and Marie. Subject matter is Morgellons. This is the Truth Denied Talk Radio. Hi, we're back with the Truth Denied Talk Radio. I'm your host, Roxy Lopez, and we've been having a conversation with Dr. Will Spencer and, of course, Melani Vritschan of Brussels and Marie Palac of Sweden. Very serious subject matter regarding Morgellons disease. For those of you who are just joining us, Marie and Melanie suffer from Morgellons disease, and, of course, Dr. Will Spencer is researching the disease and doing what he can to help the Morgellons community, and that's what we're calling it today. If you want to call on the show and ask some questions, the number here is 218-339-8525. We are live from Phoenix. Dr. Will Spencer, I have a question for you. In light of what Marie and Melanie have just told us, Marie was just getting through her dialogue of some of what is working for her, baking soda on her skin, or mixtures, the vinegar, the apple cider vinegar, I believe she mentioned. Are these some of the things that you are also looking at as far as helpful aids for Morgellons patients?
Yeah, to hold the symptoms down to a dull roar, if you will, or to, as looking at the symptom relief, the common products like that work. I'm actually working more on the genetic end of it, because there is some crazy genetic expression that's taking place, and that's the angle that I'm using, and I use a little different methods of my core program that I've put together to actually get the different gene expressions taking place, as well as the chemical aspect of this, because there seems to be, like in Melanie's case, Maria's case, a long time standing working with hair products and the hair salon type of products, which are extremely toxic. And there again, along with the chemical aspect, there's the fungal pathogen aspect. So that's the angle I'm working on. But what Marie was saying for the vinegar and the baking soda and some of the just common products, they work good for controlling the symptoms. Absolutely.
Okay, and that's great. And let's see, Melanie, are you using any of these types of remedies for yourself as well?
Well, not really, I must admit. So I try to, I've always been before a very sporty person. I used to run marathon. Obviously I can't do this anymore now, but suffering from Morgellons. But what I do is I try to eat healthy. So I try to eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of yogurts. I try to take care of my food intake, basically. That's something I do. I must admit I do not do so many things like Marie, working with apple cider, I believe, and MSN, but maybe I should. Maybe I should try that. But I personally don't do that now.
Okay, I have something interesting. So earlier on in the show, we were talking about Morgellons, the name of the disease. It shouldn't be called Morgellons at all. It should be called GMOD, which is genetically modified organized disease. Listen, in March, 7 European countries, now speaking of GMOs, 7 European countries, Belgium, Britain, Bulgaria, France, Germany, Ireland, and Slovakia, blocked a proposal by the Danish EU presidency to allow the cultivation of genetically modified plants on the continent. That's pretty heavy stuff. Today, or actually I should say yesterday, Poland wants to ban Monsanto GM maize, which is MON 810, genetically modified strain of maize. Again, that's MON 810. Agriculture Minister Marek Sawicki told reporters that, quote, adding that pollen of this strain, again, referring to the MON 810, could have harmful effects on the bees. Now, with that in mind, what do you have to say to that, Dr. Spencer?
Well, the pollen is actually a pesticide now, and it is affecting the bees. And there was a study just out, I think 2 days ago, was published in The Ecologist in the UK that stated that without a shadow of a doubt, the genetically modified plants, the pollen coming from them, are directly related to colony collapse disorder.
Is that right?
Yes. It was in The Ecologist out of the UK.
Okay. So with this in mind, in March, 7 European countries, and now Poland, just yesterday, wanting to ban the use of this Monsanto GM maize, I guess it is. Again, back to the name Morgellons, which is, as Dr. Caroline Carter calls, a no name, because she thinks it should be called GMOD, which is genetically modified organism disease. Now, with this in mind, can we, I'm going to ask Marie and Melanie first, and then we'll get back to you on the answer, Will. Marie and Melanie, are you familiar with GMOs, and do you personally think that GMO foods had anything to do with your current condition? And Marie, will take your answer first.
Yes and no. Because I have found out since I began to eat more healthy and take care of what I eat, because before, when I was a real businesswoman and eat very, very wrong, so I can really feel, especially 1 year ago when I can't explain it, but when I eat something, I could immediately feel something strange in my mouth. So I knew this is not good. And the same with my stomach and everything, because it's going inside. So that I believe in, there is something with that, but there is so many other things, because I have the most problem from outside. From the environment and from now when the pollen and the trees, so I have a lot of allergy and dust, and I can do nothing because my body reaction for everything, for electricity and everything. So you're basically allergic. Sorry, Marie. You're basically allergic to everything. Is that what started to happen? Like you're mentioning the word allergic. I just want to be clear that this is the correct word for you. That you become allergic to everything. What you're eating, the air outside, pollen in the air, etc. Yes, I feel immediately what I am. I cannot see when it comes from outside, but I can feel when I eat or when I touch on something that I don't, that I have a reaction from. So
can you describe the reaction that you have? Like when you say when you touch something or you put the food in your mouth, what exactly is the reaction?
The reaction is, it's like for the food, I can feel it inside in my organs, and in my mouth, on my tongue, it's like if you have a allergy for apple, for example. I don't have that kind of allergy, but for example, then you suddenly feel that you swelled in your vessel, and
okay.
But not so much from the food. For me, it's more outside. I can go, for example, to shopping, and there you can buy milk, and there is a big refrigerator. Suddenly, I begin to be shaky and electric, and my vessel begin to swell. So then I feel this reaction.
Okay.
Allergy.
Okay, and Melanie, do you have any of these types of symptoms whatsoever?
Well, I know how this sounds, but I have definitely, I could definitely feel, it's very, very difficult for somebody who doesn't suffer from Morgellons, but a constant flow of electricity going through my body. It's like, this is basically Morgellons, at least in part, is an invasion of human tissues by nanotechnology, and I can feel these wires under my skin. I can feel the pulsation energy, or let's say the electricity going through. So I react very strongly to any electromagnetic frequency, or so I can relate to what Marie said, that she feels that when she's near to a refrigerator or any kind of electric device. Regarding the GMO food. I believe personally that our food is poisoning us as we go along, slowly but gradually. So I'm sure it has something to do with that. I can personally recall that before for my job, at once we had a dinner. I don't know if that's linked, but we were told that we're eating genetically modified food. But we were, of course, told not to worry, and that's perfectly safe. And, of course, today I know that that's absolutely not the case. So I know I've consumed it in the past, at least on one occasion. And what I think is interesting in that respect is that when Marie and I first got in touch, she told me that her first thought were when these Morgellons symptoms started, that she was poisoned.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So really felt that you were poisoned. Marie, explain that.
Yeah, I had, in this story there is many stories. So that's because I can identify me with so many things. And I had a divorce, a very hard divorce, not emotional, but with everything else. And so after a while I begin to think maybe my ex-husband has poisoned me because I found some big insurance on me. So I didn't know about Morgellons and everything else. So when everything begins to happen to me with this electricity, there was so many things that happened. So I think, maybe somebody had poisoned me with the ventilation, because I get sicker and sicker on my spa. I have a very big spa and a saloon. So in the end, I begin to looking after what can it be, and I saw this black stuff and some sparkling things around me and on the products, and then in my home, and there was a lot of things happening in that time who was really, really weird. And there were so many things that happened in that time. So after some year, when I understand, they thought I was crazy, or they thought I didn't tell the truth. But I'm a very honest person, so I'm maybe too stupid to sometimes, because I'm 100% honest and telling, this happened. So after a while, when the real strange thing begins to happen, and then I really believed that somebody poisoned me. So I take a step back and don't tell so many things that I do today what really happens. So
it must be absolutely frightening, and it sounds like you both, Marie and Melanie, have reached out to the world at this point to get some sort of fellowship going, some sort of support for what you're going through, and this is only going to be good for you and good for others who have any of these symptoms. Again, if you those who are listening, if you want to go to the Truth Tonight's website, just go to the Morgellons menu, drop down underneath, and go ahead and take a look at all the photos and all the blood. Now, I have an interesting thing, and I'll ask Dr. Will Spencer about this. December 7th, 1982, there's a U.S. patent 4362271, procedure for the artificial modification of atmospheric precipitation as well as compounds with a dimethyl sulfoxide base for use in carrying out said procedure. And the question is, why modify dew with dimethyl sulfoxide? Well, dimethyl sulfoxide is a compound used to carry any substance you like straight through the skin and into your cells. It's a fantastic compound when used correctly in medicine, but very nice to have on one's skin unknowingly. Whatever follows DMSO will enter your cells. Do you know anything about that, Dr. Spencer?
Yeah, I know about the DMSO. I actually use it in some of my topical applications because it does carry things into the body relatively easy. Mm-hmm. I should say the nanotechnology and some of these other patented technologies use that particular product so the nanoparticles get absorbed right in through the skin also. And I have some other patents too. I shared one with you in the chat room here a little bit ago about this patented technology, and it's been around for a while, like you said, in 2002 or longer.
Oh, yeah, right. So is this why Morgellons sufferers are also, and I find this in my own research, but this is about you guys. The question is going to be after the break, do you find a connection between chemtrails and Morgellons disease? We'll be right back with Dr. Will Spencer, Marie Palac, Melani Vritschan, and this is The Truth Denied. I'm Roxy Lopez. Marie and Melani. And, boy, we just asked the question, and I'd like to know the answer. I'm sure the public would too. Is there a connection between Morgellons disease and chemtrails? Dr. Will Spencer, I'll let you take that one.
I would say there is, because some of the components that we're finding, the artifacts coming out of people's bodies, are being detected in the air. So, that's pretty high altitudes actually, and so that would lead me to believe there is a connection, as well as not only the components, the fibers and the metals that are coming out of people's bodies are in people's bodies, but also these exotic or new lab-created microorganisms, genetically altered ones, are showing up in people's bodies, as well as in the atmosphere. So, it would only lead me to believe that there is a direct connection.
Right. And I don't know if I know Marie and Melani have done a lot of research as well, because they have this disease. And let's go with Marie on this. Marie, do you think did you find any connection with, for instance, chemtrail days, the days that they're spraying a lot, that you had any sort of reaction to the spraying?
Yes, I think that because now when I have, I know a little more. Before, I didn't know so much about chemtrails, but now when when I have these real reaction days of allergy, and I look around and I couldn't see, but now I have begun to look up in the sky, and for example, last week I have so really pain. I have pain in my head every day, like headache, but this day was a different kind of headache, and I felt like I was throwing up, but I didn't. But that kind of feeling. And then there was a lot of plane who I could see that in the Swedish chemtrails websites, that they said, oh, today they're spraying a lot. So I really believe it, and when now I thinking after, because when everything happens to me, then there was so much dust in my home, and I didn't understand. I think, oh, it's my boys who from the socks or something, because the dust come all the time, and I was afraid of this dust in the air, and I think, of course, there is something mixed with everything, with food, with chemtrails. I think there is a big connection with everything.
Okay, and Melanie, what do you think?
I know for a fact that there is a connection because, one of the groups I'm also working with, and I got a lot of support from them as well, is I'm in contact with he was a former mayor here in Belgium, and he has founded a civil rights movement. It's called Belfort Group. And I think 2 years ago they organized a chemtrail symposium here in Belgium, where they also invited a journalist, a medical research journalist that I also know. She's called Desiree Reuver, very intelligent woman, very brave also. She's from the Netherlands, and she gave a presentation there, and especially regarding the link between chemtrails and Morgellons. So basically presenting the substance they had found in rainwater, so which is the fibers, and which is basically matching the material that is coming out of Morgellons patients. So it's basically the same, or it's definitely related. And why I also mentioned this is in this custody procedure that you've just mentioned, Roxy, that you have been following on everybody here, I believe. When the psychologist said, well, the mother's obviously gotten really crazy now because she believes it could be linked to some kind of nanotechnology in her body or coming out of her body. I said, okay, well, if everybody thinks I'm crazy, why don't we ask somebody really qualified? And I got in touch with this medical research journalist, Desiree Reuver, and I said, well, Desiree, what do you think? According to you, what is Morgellons? And the answer that came back was saying, well, according to me, first of all, she made it very clear that there was a link to chemtrails. And secondly, she said, according to me, it's a kind of test or testing on certain people in view of transhumanism and the creation of artificial intelligence. And this kind of answer, her research basically was also put in the court files and obviously ignored for the reasons that you have pointed out very correctly, I believe, Roxy. But there is a connection, and it's been actually proven that there is a connection.
Thank you for that answer. Dr. Spencer, what Melanie and Marie are just referring to, synthetic biology, I mean, people need to wake up. The biologists in our country alone, I mean, there's just miles and miles of information that goes along with what they just said now and supports everything that they just relayed to us. There's so much money going into it. It's unbelievable as well. So, Will, what would you have to say, though? What's your opinion on what Melanie and Marie just had to say in regards to synthetic biology and all the rest of it?
I am totally aligned with that. I know the technology exists because the patents exist and because the programs exist. There's enough information out there. It's not readily easily to get at some of it, but I've had a couple of researcher friends of mine a couple of them have been killed, one's still alive, for trying to publicize how to dismantle that technology. And actually one of the creators of that technology through the military is a researcher friend of mine, and he's actually woke up now to the fact and helping me put together a plan which we are having extremely good results with for dismantling this technology inside the human body using bioremediation technology.
And can you? I want to back up just a second, and then I would love to hear more about the What did you say? Bioremediation? Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned that somebody died trying to publicize or dismantle the research or expose the research.
Yeah, there was a couple of researchers that I had known. One, I'm not going to mention any names right now, but he took and raised an acre of genetically modified corn, and he he had access his laboratory at the Texas A&M, so he had access to DNA, being able to look at the gene expression in the DNA. So he planted the 1 acre. He used the bioremediation technology in the soil, and at the end of that one growing season, the genetic manipulation of the original seed that he used to plant the crop with was not there in the seed of the corn plant. So in one growing season, one cycle, they completely reversed the genetic expression or the genetic modification expression. And he was attempting to publish that in his findings, or with his other findings, to his in a peer review, and he had one of these mysterious deaths, that are so common with microbiologists in the last few years. And I've since met some other friends of his also that say the same thing. I mean, it was just totally mysterious craziness, but it was all on the heels of him publicizing this information. And here's a 30-plus year scientist, researcher, and then all of a sudden this happens when he was ready to publish something very sensitive like that, but yet very much in tune to help humanity, but not the industrial sector.
All right, and then I guess my next question would be, is this diabolical?
Anybody in their right mind looking at this long enough, and I've been looking at this for quite a few years, in my opinion, you can't come to any other conclusion than that.
So what would you say the motives or the efforts of these there are a lot of different views on this, so I'll just throw out a few of them. One is money, control, power, to control the pharmaceuticals that are in charge, the corporations that are in charge who have strong-armed the government, this whole New World Order agenda, or is this a genocide like the Georgia Guidestones talk about? Is this a genocide where they're just going to wipe out, the great culling type of thing, wipe out, 2/3 of humanity? Or what is this? And if 8 out of 10 people are testing positive for Morgellons, are they going to cook up a cure for this? Is that what's going on? So they're basically, or is this a terrestrial disease, or is this an extraterrestrial disease? That's another one that's come up as well. So what do you think?
Do we have a selection for all of the above? Because I would definitely check that box.
Really, all of the above. So it's a little bit of everything, and maybe there's just a lot of companies involved. Now, with chemtrails, I think that I've interviewed Rosalind Carter and a few others on this subject matter of chemtrails and who's doing it. Everybody wants to know who's doing it. I have my own research on it as well. And Rosalind Peterson came right out and said it's the Navy in our country. And I can testify to the fact that when I see chemtrails, it is the military flight pattern that I see, the massive, massive aerosol spraying. So if it's our own military, what are they doing? And why would the military, who's not a private corporation, be in bed with a private corporation, to spread this junk? And what are they spreading, and what are they spraying anyway?
No, they're a for-profit company, just like the government is in this country. You look at Dun & Bradstreet, all military branches right now are all listed on Dun & Bradstreet, just like the United States of America Corporation, just like the Internal Revenue Service Corporation or the FBI Corporation. It's all a for-profit corporation that we're not understanding. Then it's all for profit. They wouldn't even be doing it if they wouldn't be getting paid something, in my opinion.
In your opinion. So, and your opinion's valid. Marie and Melanie, and I'll take Melanie first. Do you find that this conversation of the multiple layers of ET and Earthlings, biologists and microbiologists and all this synthetic biology and this and that, blah blah, and then chemtrails and the military being involved and private corporations and everything else, and then the testing being so high of 8 out of 10 people have Morgellons disease in the area of Cyprus. Now I don't know if that's testing worldwide. I will say this, and then I'll ask the question. Every sample that we have sent in, my organization has sent in, every single hair sample that we have sent in, 100% of them have tested positive for Morgellons disease. 100%. So, again, Melanie, what do you think? Do you think that it's this multi-tiered layer of madness? And if it is, how would one begin to escape Morgellons? For instance, you have no cure at this point, but maybe you can get some relief from the side effects. But are you worried that this disease is going to kill you?
Oh, yes, I am. In fact, what I believe is that it's an effort to transhumanize us and also to reduce our lifespan, at least. So I am definitely worried. I think it's very, very worrying what you say that you've got such a high rate of positive, testing positive. It's very worrying to me. Regarding the checklist that you gave before, and also as a sufferer, I can say it is pure evil. This is definitely diabolic. And I would check everything, just like Will, except the alien connection, because I would say that it's purely man-made, this disease or this condition. Yes, it is worrying. I worry that I die from it. I definitely do. And also what really, it has, really definitely destroyed my life. I cannot work anymore. Money-wise, it has been a downgoing spiral. Also, I've lost a lot of friends. I had a very, very active social life before, but, it's...
We'll get right back with you, Melanie. Hold that thought, sweetheart. We'll be right back with the Truth Tonight Talk Radio for the last 20 minutes of the show. Freedom Radio. You guys rock. I'm glad to be part of the family now. We're here with Dr. Will Spencer, Marie Palac of Sweden, and Melani Vritschan of Brussels. And people, listen, the whole idea behind this, I think what everyone here is trying to express, and I thank you for coming on the show. I thank you for being so courageous, and I mean that. It is courageous to come out and say what Marie has said and to explain this disease like Melanie has and to be part of the cure like Dr. Will Spencer. This is really important stuff. It's real. It's not a conspiracy, people. It's real, and it makes me want to cry. Seriously. I want to be part of the solution, too. So we've all got to sort of, get together, unify. It makes me crazy that we're not. I don't know I don't know. Melanie, I'd rather be you. Marie, I'd rather be you, and I mean this. And I'd rather be you, Will Spencer, than be asleep at the wheel here. At least you're all awake, and you're a part of a very important time for humanity, a very important, wonderful, change. We're going into a new age. Anyway, enough of me. So Dr. Will Spencer, what Melanie had mentioned before the break, this transhumanizing. Whoa, that's a big word. What does that mean?
Altering our being, our human, transforming the human being. There is a free video on YouTube. If you just type in transhumanism, I forget the name now, but there's a gal named Sophia that did a great presentation. It's about an hour long last year. And she explains it, and there's actually several scientists on YouTube that will gladly explain that. And it's a science fiction. They're trying to improve the human.
Well, and let me ask you, Marie, has this been an improvement?
It felt, I think, when I have now heard about this and read little, because in the beginning I always said to everybody when I try to explain how I feel, it feels like I am a snake who will change the skin. I feel I have the second skin over me. It's not me. It's like I have have a mask all over me, and even when I look at my skin and look at my face, I didn't recognize me. That was not my hand, not my skin. In 2 years, I think, I have this feeling before I try to get rid of this not human being skin. So there is something logic in it. It's so weird, everything, and it's unbelievable, but you can identify with so many things. So I believe in everything that I can personally and my own experience, what I have gone through, say, yes, I believe in this.
Right, and I get what you're saying. You also have a very positive attitude. I don't think that neither one of you, Marie or Melanie, would have survived this insanity if you didn't have such a powerful mental attitude. You just have such a strength about you that's actually infectious as well. It's in other words, it's. I think that you inspire people by your story, even though no one wants to be a Morgellons patient, but you inspire people. And Will, you had mentioned earlier in the program that you are doing something to help Morgellons patients. Can you reiterate what you are trying out that seems to be at least helping to mitigate those symptoms? Hello, Dr. Will Spencer?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I had pressed the mute by accident. I'm sorry. You can find out more on my website.
Why don't you go ahead and give out your? Go ahead.
bodyelectrician.com, and the first page that comes up when you go is called Nature's Chelation. And it's been around for quite a long time. It's also known as bioremediation. So what I've done is taken the use of microorganisms and chelating elements of the minerals as well as the microorganisms, because they actually are responsible to break down and digest or remediate the chemical aspect of this as well as the nanotechnology aspect of this, and to help build the immunity. So that in itself there's a longer explanation, but that should be brief enough to give you an idea. But it's just a practice that's been around for quite some time, but never put into the use in the human body until just recently.
Right. Okay. And people can find that on your website. So that's excellent. And is this something easy to do if somebody were going to take the information and try to utilize it? And is this only for Morgellons patients, or is this for just about anybody? Is this sort of a cleansing thing that's going on with your chelation and the rest of it?
Well, I recommend this for everybody because everybody's breathing air. Everybody is, even the organic food is contaminated with genetic modification because of pollen cross contamination and so forth. And it's just basically restoring nature into the food chain again, because the food chain has been deficient, and they've been knowing this since the early 1900s. So it's basically just saturating your body with all these good things from nature that are not there anymore, and the body then is able to restore some kind of homeostasis in this chemical soup that we have to live in.
Right. Absolutely. And you know, there are a lot of doctors that are coming out with, as you had just said, different liver cleanses, safe liver cleanses. And the public is having to take on this, you know, this form of, I don't know, self-diagnose and self-healing. Although, you know, doctors have said for years, I know my own doctor said it, you know, don't try to self-diagnose, don't try to do any of that stuff. But more and more people are having to do so, especially when you have somebody like, you know, Melanie or Marie, who have been suffering for years with something, this disease, and not knowing what it is, and doctors not telling them what it is. It's just outrageous. So, you know, I thank you for, you know, the help that and the aid that you can give them as well. And let's see how this goes in the future. I would like to keep in touch with all three of you to see if you're going to be taking on anything. And is there anything else for, let's say, Melanie? Well, actually, Marie. Marie, do you have anything that you want to say? We're going to be wrapping up the show. Anything you want to say to the public? Just something that you want to tell the public before we let you go?
Yes, I'm very grateful that you have invited me tonight, and I hope if somebody thinks I think if you sooner they started to take care of themselves, like Will Spencer, he has many advice and try to do by themselves, because if you take a lot of psychological medication, then you lose some years. So if you begin to be sick and everybody tell you you are crazy, so the best way is to close the ear and don't listen, and take care of yourself.
Okay, that's great advice. And Marie, thank you for staying up with us and into your now next day in Sweden. We really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And please come back on the show again, okay, Marie?
Yeah, thank you very much. You are so lovely, and I really like to be with you here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. And Melanie, what would you have to say in parting words?
Well, first of all, I also would like to thank you for inviting us, and especially addressing this subject. And well, I think a lot of people are really, really in despair. A lot of people have killed themselves, but I think that having this disease and not getting any help and being called delusional. But I think that there are people that want to help us. I mean, you're the best example, and Dr. Will Spencer, and this gives hope. And it's via shows like this that we can.
Thank you, Melanie. And Dr. Spencer, you give out your website one more time, please.
That's bodyelectrician.com.
All right. That's www.bodyelectrician.com. We're also going to have a video of all of this, and we'll be in touch again. Thank you so much for joining the show. We really appreciate it, okay?
All right. Thank you, Roxy, so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. We'll definitely be in touch. And again, it's our first show with the American Freedom Radio. Hope I didn't butcher anything here. The producers have been awesome and very, very helpful. We'll be back again next Friday, 7 to 9 Central. Hey, stay tuned. My good friend Sean David Morton is next, and he's a riot. He is awesome. So hang in there. Love you guys.
The American Freedom Radio Network proudly presents, live from Phoenix, Arizona, The Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here every Friday from 7 to 9 Central for topics you won't hear on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, Morgellons disease, and much more. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. If you would like to speak to the host, the call-in number is 218-339-8525. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We're live from Phoenix, Arizona. It's the Truth Tonight Talk Radio, and I am your host, Roxy Lopez. Hey, before we even get started, I want to be sure to thank Danny Romero at American Freedom Radio for asking me to host my show here. I am thrilled. It's an absolute honor. Love the time slot, too. It's a different time slot for us. I want to also thank a friend of mine, Sean David Morton. He's the one that turned me on. We actually had an interview about a week ago, and Danny heard the interview, and here we are. So rock on, people. Listen, today's topic is... it's pretty heavy. For those of you who don't know about Morgellons disease, we're going to talk about this today. And one of my guests today is Dr. Will Spencer. He's working with some patients with Morgellons. You won't find an MD in this country, in the USA anyway, or the European countries. I don't know any doctor that will work with somebody who has Morgellons. Basically, the CDC put out a report about a month ago. Will, why do you think that this is such a big cover-up? I mean, the Morgellons was reported 20-some-odd years ago. According to Dr. Caroline Carter, she says it shouldn't even be called Morgellons disease. It should be called GMOD, which would stand for Genetically Modified Organism Disease. What do you have to say about that?
I am totally aligned with that.
You are. Well,
absolutely.
The theory makes sense, you see. But what is the cover-up? Well, why is there such... I mean, to interject for a moment, she is testing via hair samples. She's testing in the country of Cyprus 8 out of 10 people, and it doesn't matter the age group, by the way, little children all the way up to the elderly. 8 out of 10 are testing positive for Morgellons disease. What's going on?
What's going on? That's a good question because actually there's a lot of patented data that I have found and people like to share when they find or declassified information that used to be classified. I have a report from 2004 that talked about the nano and micro technologies of unmanned, basically smart dust, which are smaller than microscopical particles that some of the components of that smart dust are showing up in people's body, coming out through these little black specks and showing up in some of the fibers. And so you tell me what's going on. I think it's madness, but the body is responding by trying to push the stuff out through the skin or whatever, and it's affecting our genetic expression. It's affecting people's health, and it's horrifying, especially when you have this.
Yeah, well, and absolutely, from what I've found from interviewing different people who actually have Morgellons disease, there's a psychological component to it as well. Can we talk about that a little bit? But we'll let Marie and Melanie explain.
Extremely long. It's almost similar to like a fungal overload, pathogenic overload, and there's so many related symptoms. Some of the more prominent ones being the body actually growing these fibrils or hairs, the body producing artifacts of some kind, whether they're some people, I've even met a couple of people that are producing plant-like material growing out of their skin. There's actually these non-earthling type of insects being come out of their body. I mean, unbelievable stories that I would never have believed it unless I was standing in their house witnessing this. Hexagons. I mean, on our website, Morgellons Research Group.com, there's probably 1,000 pictures that you can see. They're real. It's unbelievable. It's like the science fiction channel come to life.
Absolutely, I agree with you. You know, as well, if people want to see some of you have photos there and everything, and our website does as well, thetruthtoday.com. If they look under GMOs or Morgellons disease tabs, they can see some of the studies that we've been doing for a couple of years with Caroline Carter out in Cyprus. But back to what you're saying, I think what first blew my mind when the subject matter was introduced to me via one of our webmasters, you're right. You just used a term, science fiction. I thought this can't even be real. It blew my mind. You know, I started with, research on synthetic fibers. You just explained it a little further, but, synthetic fibers meaning something that can't and should not be growing in the human body and then colonizing in the human body. And some of the, and of course we'll have Melanie and Marie on in about 20 minutes to sort of expose like what they're actually going through physically and mentally. But there are many components to this. Now, why do you think saying it really doesn't exist? And they've been pretty much doing that for 20 years. So we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about this. This is what our shows are all about, people. They're putting some awareness out. A lot of subject matters that the general public is unaware that certain behaviors in the medical field are occurring. And I just have to commend Dr. Will Spencer for actually taking the bull by the horn, so to speak, and researching this disease along with GMOs, which we're going to talk about as well today. The two other guests we're going to bring on a little bit later are Melani Vritschan from Brussels. Her story is just amazing. She will discuss what it means to have Morgellons and what has happened to her life. If you guys want to go to the Facebook page, for those of you who are older listeners, the Facebook page is Roxy Lopez on Facebook. We just posted some photos of both of these gals. Marie Palac is also going to be our guest. And she also is a sufferer. She's from Sweden. So we're going to bring them both on. But first, let's introduce Dr. Will Spencer. Let's get talking about what you do. Welcome to the show, Dr. Spencer. Glad you could make it.
Good evening, Roxy. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about your studies with Morgellons. Like, when did you start with that? When did you first come across Morgellons? What led you to Morgellons? I know that you also have some other discoveries and some other work that you've been doing with bees and colony collapse disorders and so forth, and GMOs as well. So start wherever you want. Back us up a little bit and give us a little bit of information about you.
A few years ago, about 3 years ago, I guess now, I was seeing this word Morgellons. And actually I had my own theories, I guess you would call it. So I got a hold of Mr. Carnicom and wanted to share some things because if you type in some of these catchwords, his name is like right up there at the top, or at least the Carnicom Institute. So I got a hold of Cliff and attempted to express some theories of mine and some research directions. And that's what led me down this road. And after Cliff was basically unwilling to look at some other directions, I left there and now I'm with the Morgellons Research Group.com, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And we've been helping. I can't even give you a number right now of people that with the Morgellons and Morgellons associated symptoms, and actually getting some extremely positive results.
Excellent. And for those who don't know who Clifford Carnicom is, he was one of the first, and if correct me if I'm wrong, he was probably the first person to go out publicly about chemtrails and study chemtrails and what they were spraying like 12 years ago, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was one of the first. Him and Clay Douglas with the freeamerican.com, they were some of the first ones that I come across. Actually, Clay was the first back in about 2001, I believe, that I contacted, but Clifford was the second. So, I mean, it's been out there a while. It's just been getting popular the last few years because more people are starting to exhibit the symptoms. Right.
And what are the symptoms, and what, from your view, from your studies, what exactly is Morgellons disease?
My view of Morgellons is basically the result of industrialization. The list of symptoms is